Hi. Welcome back to the Story Place. I'm so glad you came back. I'm Anne-Marie Battistone, and this is Norfolk Public Access. My first story is The Treasure of Ghostwood Gully, and it takes place in the American Southwest. Coyote leads her animal friends on a slightly spooky, slightly silly treasure hunt through the desert to the heart of Ghostwood Gully. When Stinkeroo the skunk decides to come along uninvited, disguised as the ghost of Gus Galoot, things get even sillier and spookier. Thrills and chills abound in this lovely picture book, ending with a sweet message of inclusion and friendship. You know, a galoot is like a big, clumsy man who is not very bright. That's what a galoot is. One moon bright night, as the animals gathered around the water hole, Coyote winked her sly eye and said, "The moon is full, the stars are bright. This is the right kind of night to go on a treasure hunt." "Treasure?" blinked Bobcat. "I'll be in on that." "I want to go," said Gecko. "Count me in," said Hare with a grin. "Yahoo! Can I come too?" asked Stinkeroo the skunk. "Ew, you are too stinky to come with us," the other said. "You stay home and go to bed." But Stinkeroo wasn't sleepy. She tiptoed into the tumbleweeds with a plan of her own. Then Coyote said, "I know just the place for you to go. In Ghostwood Gully, a chest of treasure can be found, buried deep beneath the ground." "Let's go find it right now," the animals cried. "Beware," Coyote warned. "It won't be easy to reach the treasure. You must go through the creepy cave, across Dead Tree Creek, climb over the tumbling boulders, and pick a spot in the very heart of Ghostwood Gully to dig." "I don't care," answered Hare. "Oh, I can do that," said Bobcat. "I'm ready to go," said Gecko. "There's one more thing you must know before you go." Coyote's voice dropped to a whisper. "That long-lost hidden loot is still guarded by the ghost of Gus Galoot." "Uh-oh," gulped Gecko. "Imagine that," blinked Bobcat. "Do we dare?" asked Hare. But the animals really wanted to go on a treasure hunt. So quiet as the night, the treasure hunters marched bravely along until they came to the mouth of the creepy cave. They tiptoed in one end of the cave as fluttering wings and blinking things swooped all around them. "Shh, rustled the grass. "Oh-hoo," wailed the wind. "Beware, take care," sighed the night. The treasure hunters had hardly stepped out of the cave when stick-stack, a strange spooky sound came from the shadows, and a voice as cold as ice whispered, "Stay away." "Oh no," cried Gecko. "What was that?" blinked Bobcat. "It gives me a scare," whispered Hare. But the animals really wanted to find that treasure chest. And if you notice in the picture, you see Stinkeroo is way up in the corner behind I guess that would be like an aloe plant. So they hurried through the moonlight until they reached Dead Tree Creek. Bony branches reached out like arms to grab them as they splashed across the muddy creek. Suddenly, rattle, a strange spooky sound came from the shadows, and a voice as rough as gravel called out, "Stay away from my treasure." "Who's there?" wondered Hare. "I don't know," gasped Gecko. "Oh, drat," snarled Bobcat. But the animals really wanted to find that treasure chest. There's Coyote, if you see in the picture, they're watching from above the hill. So they trotted until they came to a place where big black boulders had tumbled across the trail. Step after step, they crept up and over those boulders. "We're nearly there," shouted Hare. "Ghostwood Gully is just around the bend." They rushed through the night, around the bend, and ran smack dab into a sight that filled them full of shivering fright. "What is that?" cried Bobcat. A ghost head to toe, groaned Gecko. It's just too scary, said Hare, feeling wary. The animals trembled with fear, but they were so close to finding Gus Galoot's treasure that they just couldn't turn back. On they raced, puffing and panting. They rumbled and bumbled and stumbled along until, boomp, they tripped over a shovel. Whip, whap, womp, wallop, the animals toppled toes over tail into a deep, dark, dirty hole and landed on something hard. What is this? Said Bobcat with a hiss. I don't know, said Gecko. It's hard as a nail, said Hare, rubbing his tail. Between them sat a big brown box with 2 rusty locks. The treasure, the animals cried. We found the treasure. When suddenly, from close by, a voice as dark as midnight cried, Who's that sitting on my treasure? Oh, the animals were scared stiff, but the treasure hunters really, really wanted to open that treasure chest. They held their breath. Slowly, slowly, they lifted up the squeaky, creaky lid and peeked inside. I got you! Oh, it's the ghost of Gus Galoot. Run and hide, Bobcat cried. We better be quick, said Hare with a kick. Let's go, called Gecko. Wait, stop, can't you see? It's only me. Coyote tossed back her head with glee. Is that so? Asked Gecko. Good grief, said Hare with relief. I knew that, said Bobcat. You silly animals, there is nothing to be afraid of. Everybody knows there's no such thing as a ghost. But at that very moment, thumpity bump, a strange spooky sound came from the shadows and a voice as prickly as cactus cried out, Boo! On you! Wearing a tumbleweed suit, out leaped the ghost of Gus Galoot. Oh! With a yelp and a shout, Coyote and the animals turned tail and ran. Out of Ghostwood Gully, around the bend, over the big black boulders, across the creek, under the bony branches, and through the cave. They didn't stop running until they reached the water hole. If you see in the picture, even Coyote is scared. As for the ghost of Gus Galoot, she removed her mask and slid slowly out of her tumbleweed suit. Going on a midnight treasure hunt, Stinkeroo said, is much more fun than going to bed. The Spectacular Tale of Peter Rabbit. And this is a version of Peter Rabbit. It's not one of the original stories, and it was inspired by the original tales of Beatrix Potter. And the drawings are a little different. It was high summer, and Peter Rabbit had a cold. Now, high summer is a British expression. Of course, this is a British story. It's a British expression meaning midsummer. He lay on his back in a patch of dry moss, looked up at the clouds, and sneezed. He was bored. Just then, as if carried on the breeze, he heard the faint sound of a drum and pipes. Peter sat up. A traveling fun fair had come to the village. It had a coconut shy, a Punch and Judy, a merry-go-round, a small roller coaster, and a sign which said, "Everyone welcome." You know, I don't know what a coconut shy is, and I meant to look it up. Next time, I will tell you what a coconut shy is. Now, a Punch and Judy refers to these puppets. A woman, maybe they're husband and wife, but they fight. One's named Punch and one's named Judy, and it's a very, very old puppet show. Peter Rabbit and Benjamin Bunny were forbidden to attend. A fair attracts the feckless and shifty, warned Mrs. Rabbit. Instead, you may go and help Cousin Lupin pick his blueberries. They set off, and somewhat lowered in spirits, stopped by the ford to nibble at a bank of sorrel. On the breeze came the rooty-toot-toot of the pipes, bagpipes. They both sat bolt upright and looked at each other. After a moment, Peter said, "Well, it is just as well to reach Cousin Lupin's by the village road as by the hill." Benjamin nodded. "We would not be going to the fair, we would be passing it." Benjamin nodded again. So you see, they dropped the bucket, so they forgot all about Lupin and the blueberries. As they neared the village green, Peter and Benjamin took very great care not to be seen. But the visitors at the fair were having far too much fun to notice two little rabbits squeezing through a hole in the fencing. At first, the yelling and the laughing and the banging of drums were too much for Benjamin, who had to pull his ears down round his chin. But Peter was thrilled. His eyes grew rounder and rounder as he watched a man shooting pellets at tin ducks. "I want one," cried his little girl. She pointed to the row of stuffed toys in front of the shooting gallery. There were monkeys and bears and cats and dogs and mice dressed in all manner of waistcoats, trousers, and jackets. Benjamin Bunny stared and stared. Their boot-button eyes stared back without blinking. The crowd jostled to see the man shoot for his little girl. One of the toys, a cross-eyed kitten in a pink ruff, was knocked off the shelf. Quick as a flash, Benjamin Bunny pulled it away and sat on it. No one saw. Well, it sounds like he was going to steal it, doesn't it? But look what happened. A great cheer went up. The man had shot 3 ducks in a row. A smiling stall holder said to the little girl, "Choose a toy, my dearie, any one you like." The girl clapped her pudgy hands with glee, looked at each toy carefully, and picked up Peter. He had been so still, watching in his blue jacket, that she had mistaken him for a prize. He found himself being kissed all over and hugged so tightly he was nearly choked. Then he was stuffed without ceremony into a small woolen bag. Benjamin watched it all with rising horror. Hardly knowing what he was doing, he began to follow the little girl, skittering from beneath one stall to the next and dragging the cross-eyed kitten by its leg. They reached the roller coaster. Benjamin could see Peter's ears swinging about as the father lifted his daughter into one of the waiting wagonettes. I think Benjamin wanted to, substitute and get Peter back. As for Peter, once he had recovered from the shock, he took care to resist his natural urge to wriggle out of the bag. Through the handles, he could just see the crisscross beams of the roller coaster as the wagonette began to rise. You see, Peter is mischievous and loves to go places and do things, and he's a risk taker. Benjamin is not. Below, Benjamin chewed on the kitten's tail to calm his nerves. The wagonette seemed to clank upwards for a very long time. Then suddenly it stopped. For a dizzying moment, it teetered on the brink, and then down it plunged. From the ground, all Benjamin could see were Peter's ears billowing out of the top of the bag. "Oh, my poor cousin," he whimpered. "Whatever will become of him?" Dodging deftly under the stripy skirts of a red-faced lady selling toffee apples, Benjamin ran to the foot of the roller coaster and hid inside a greasy poke of newspaper, which, judging by the smell, had recently contained fish. Now, poke is a British word for bag, and in England, they loved fish and chips, and they sold them, believe it or not, in newspaper. Maybe you've seen that on TV, but there it is. I don't know, newspaper. You would think, I don't know, you would think the ink would come off on the food. At the same time, the wagonette containing the father, his daughter, and Peter came to a juddering halt. The little girl skipped out, joggling Peter in the bag, which had become very oppressive. Her father tried to follow, but was less nimble. "Me knee's stuck," he roared. "Help me, Flossie." The little girl dropped her bag on the ground and ran to help her father, laughing at his grumpy face. Fast as lightning, Benjamin shot over, pulled Peter from the bag, and put the cross-eyed kitten in his place. The cousins ran, although Peter, being wobbly in the legs, had to lean on Benjamin. They reached the safety of the newspaper poke just in time, for the little girl had picked up her bag and was looking with fury at the cross-eyed kitten. "That's not my toy," she cried. "Who's taken my toy?" She pulled out the kitten and threw it on the ground. "Leave it, Flossie," said her father. "Let's have a turn on the merry-go-round." But the little girl refused to hear, her blue eyes darting here and there, swift and sharp as a hawk's. Oh, she's very angry. Then Peter stumbled on an apple core. One of the brass buttons on his jacket caught in the sunshine. "There! There!" shouted the little girl. "There's my toy!" And she pointed directly at Peter and Benjamin. The rabbits froze. The father looked over and frowned. He rubbed his eyes. "I didn't win 2 of the blooming things, did I?" he asked. Then the girl rushed towards Peter. Ooh. Peter and Benjamin ran faster than they had ever run in their lives. They shot past the coconut shy, under the Punch and Judy, which was the merry-go-round, through the merry-go-round, which was still moving, and, unable to find the hole in the fencing, simply ran directly out at the gate past the astonished ticket taker. Excuse me, children, ticket seller. The little girl tried to keep up, but was no match for 2 frightened rabbits. She plopped to the ground and set up a wail. "Come on now, Floss," said her father, tired of the fair, the heat, and the crowd. "One toy's as good as any other," and he handed her the cross-eyed kitten. It was an exhausted, filthy pair of bunnies, both smelling of grease and old fish, who tumbled onto the floor of the sandy burrow later that evening. Mrs. Rabbit took one look at their tired, guilty faces and thought it prudent not to exact any punishment. Instead, they were bundled into a hot bath, rubbed vigorously with rough towels, and put straight to bed with cups of hot milk and nutmeg for its calming properties. Peter couldn't sleep. In the wee, small hours, Benjamin found him staring out at the fairground lights, which twinkled merrily on the dark horizon. "But couldn't you have waited to rescue me until after the merry-go-round?" said Peter. Benjamin simply pulled his blanket up over his ears. "Gee, what a cool house. They're below ground and they have a window right between the tree roots." The end. Now, this next book is from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, very famous museum in the city of New York. And it's really something unbelievable when you go in and look at the collection. Whether fanciful as in the Mother Goose rhyme of a pussycat that visited the Queen, or ferocious as in French primitivist Henri Rousseau's stirring Repast of the Lion, The felines in this collection do as they like, when they like. And just as cats are forever curious about the world, the art and poetry in this collection prove that the world was, is, and always will be deeply curious about cats. The lazy pussy. There lives a good-for-nothing cat, so lazy it appears that chirping birds can safely come and light upon her ears. And rats and mice can venture out to nibble at her toes, or climb around and pull her tail and boldly scratch her nose. Fine servants brush her silken coat and give her cream for tea. Yet she's a good-for-nothing cat, as all the world may see. And that was written by an American in the 19th century. And this is entitled, this is a Chinese, it looks like it's a scroll painted. It's called, in English, Spring Play in a Tang Garden. And Tang was one of the dynasties in the very, very long history of China. She sights a bird. She sights a bird. She chuckles. She flattens. Then she crawls. She runs without the look of feet. Her eyes increase to balls. Her jaws stir, twitching, hungry. Her teeth can hardly stand. She leaps, but Robin leaped the first. Ah, pussy of the sand. The hopes so juicy ripening, you almost bathed your tongue when bliss disclosed 100 toes and fled with every one. Now, I confess I don't know what those last two lines quite mean. This was Emily Dickinson, who lived in Amherst, Massachusetts. And this is I think this is a very strange painting. The one in the back's looking right at us. The bird has a string tied to its leg. We don't know why. And the two cats are much like the cats in the poem. There's a ballerina's shoe, a toe shoe, and the bird is holding a little card which says who this painting was made by. And that was Don Manuel Osorio Manrique de Zunga. And that is a detail from that painting, and that's the name of the painting. And it's done by Francisco de Goya y Lucientes. He was Spanish in the 18th century. Oil on canvas. The Three Little Kittens. You probably heard this when you were much younger, but I don't know if I've ever heard the whole poem. 3 little kittens lost their mittens, and they began to cry. Oh, mother dear, we very much fear that we've lost our mittens. Lost your mittens, you naughty kittens. Then you shall have no pie. Meow, meow, meow. No, you shall have no pie. Meow, meow, meow. The 3 little kittens found their mittens, and they began to cry. Oh, mother dear, see here, we have found our mittens. Put on your mittens, you silly kittens, and you may have some pie. Purr, purr, purr. Oh, let us have the pie. Purr, purr, purr. The 3 little kittens put on their mittens and soon ate up the pie. Oh, mother dear, we greatly fear that we have soiled our mittens. Soiled your mittens, you naughty kittens. Then they began to sigh. Meow, meow, meow. Then they began to sigh. Meow, meow, meow. The 3 little kittens washed their mittens and hung them out to dry. Oh, mother dear, do you not hear that we have washed our mittens? Washed your mittens? Oh, you're good kittens. But I smell a rat close by. Hush, hush. Meow, meow. We smell a rat close by. Meow, meow, meow. So I hope you like that. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I hope you liked everything. I'm Anne-Marie Battistone. You're watching Norfolk Cable Access, and this is The Story Place. See you next time.